My son said, "I decided to sell your house to buy a new car for my wife. She's more important than you. You have 24 hours to pack your things." I just smiled. He didn't know that the house was actually already sold. I'm glad you're here with me. Please like this video and listen to my story till the end and let me know which city you're listening from. That way I can see how far my story has traveled. I smiled when my son said those words. He had no idea what was coming. Let me take you back 6 months earlier, when life seemed normal. I was Martha Henderson, 68 years old, living in the modest 2-story house my late husband Robert and I had bought 43 years ago in suburban Connecticut. Robert passed away 3 years ago from cancer, leaving me the house, a small pension, and memories that filled every corner of those walls. I spent my days gardening, volunteering at the local library, and waiting for my son Derek's weekly phone calls that came every Sunday at 6 p.m. sharp, or at least they used to. The first troubling sign came last April. Derek called on a Wednesday, not Sunday. "Mom, Jessica and I were thinking, your house is pretty big for just one person, isn't it?" His voice had that tone, the one he used when he wanted something but pretended he was doing me a favor. "Maybe you should consider downsizing. Think about it." I brushed it off. He was probably concerned about me managing the property alone, but the calls became more frequent, more insistent. "Mom, have you thought about what we discussed?" "Mom, Jessica found this great assisted living facility." "Mom, you're not getting any younger." Each conversation chipped away at the warmth between us. My daughter-in-law, Jessica, who used to call me weekly to chat about recipes and her garden, suddenly stopped calling altogether. When I did see her at Sunday dinners, she'd stare at her phone, offering nothing but cold smiles and monosyllabic responses. By June, the pretense had dropped completely. They came to my house one Saturday afternoon without calling first. Jessica walked through my living room like a real estate agent, commenting on outdated fixtures and wasted space. Derek followed behind her, nodding along like a puppet. "This place could sell for at least $600,000, Mom," he said, avoiding my eyes. "You could get a nice apartment and still have money left over." "Left over for what?" I asked, my stomach tightening. "Well, for your care, and maybe to help family." He glanced at Jessica, who was examining my mother's china cabinet with calculating eyes. That's when I understood. This wasn't about my well-being. This was about their wants. Over the next month, I watched my son transform into someone I barely recognized. He'd grown entitled, influenced entirely by Jessica's expensive tastes. I'd see her Instagram posts, designer handbags, luxury vacations, complaints about their old BMW that was only 3 years old. Meanwhile, Derek worked long hours at his accounting firm, his face growing more haggard with each visit. While Jessica didn't work at all, spending her days at yoga studios and wine bars with friends who seemed just as materialistic, the situation escalated in July when they brought a real estate agent to my house. Without asking permission, I came home from the library to find a strange woman measuring my living room while Jessica pointed out selling features. I asked them to leave. Derek barely apologized. Jessica didn't even look at me. But nothing prepared me for what happened 2 weeks ago, on that Tuesday afternoon that changed everything. Derek barged through my front door without knocking. His face was red, his jaw set. Jessica stood behind him in the doorway, arms crossed, wearing a smug expression that made my blood run cold. "Mom, we need to talk. Now." He didn't wait for me to respond, just planted himself on my couch like he owned it. "I've made a decision. I'm selling this house." I stared at him. "You're selling my house?" "Jessica deserves a new car. The BMW is embarrassing. She's important to me. More important than you keeping this old house when you don't even need it." His words came out in a rush, like he'd rehearsed them. "I'm giving you 24 hours to pack your essentials. We've already talked to a lawyer. Since Dad left the house to you without a trust, and you're getting older, we can make a case for conservatorship if we need to." Jessica stepped forward then, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "It's for your own good, Martha. You'll thank us later." My son, my only child, whom I'd raised alone after his father worked himself to death to give him a good life, stood there threatening to declare me incompetent so he could steal my home and buy his spoiled wife a luxury vehicle. I smiled. I couldn't help it. The irony was too perfect. Because what Derek didn't know, what neither of them knew, was that I'd sold the house 3 weeks ago. Derek's face twisted with confusion when he saw me smile. "What's so funny?" he demanded, standing up from my couch. Jessica's eyes narrowed suspiciously. "Nothing, dear," I said quietly, keeping my expression neutral despite my racing heart. "I understand. 24 hours. I'll start packing." They exchanged glances. Derek looked slightly guilty, Jessica triumphant. They left without another word, Jessica's designer heels clicking against my hardwood floors like a countdown timer. The moment the door closed, my legs gave out. I sank into Robert's old armchair, the one I'd kept because it still smelled faintly of his cologne, and let the reality wash over me. My son had just threatened me. My own child had stood in the house his father and I had built our life in and threatened to have me declared incompetent, to strip away my autonomy, my dignity, everything, just so his wife could have a newer car. How had I raised someone capable of this? I sat there for an hour, maybe 2, staring at the family photos on the mantel. Derek as a baby. Derek's first day of school. Derek's college graduation, where he'd thanked me tearfully for all the sacrifices I'd made. Where had that boy gone? When had Jessica's influence poisoned him so thoroughly? But beneath the hurt, something else was growing. A cold, clear anger that sharpened my mind instead of clouding it. They'd made a crucial mistake. They'd assumed I was helpless, that I'd simply roll over and let them take everything. They'd underestimated me completely. I walked to my bedroom and pulled out the file folder I'd hidden in the back of my closet 3 weeks ago. Inside were all the documents, the sale contract for the house, the closing papers, the bank statements showing the $615,000 deposit from the sale. I'd sold it to a lovely young couple, the Reyes family, who had a baby on the way and had fallen in love with the house the moment they saw it. The closing had happened quickly. They'd paid cash from an inheritance. They'd even agreed to let me rent the house back from them for 6 months while I figured out my next steps, which had seemed like a blessing at the time. Now I realized it was even better than that. It was leverage. My hands trembled as I looked through the papers, but not from fear anymore, from something else entirely. A plan was forming in my mind, one that would teach Derek and Jessica a lesson they'd never forget. First, I needed to understand exactly what I was dealing with. I opened my laptop. Yes, this 68-year-old woman knew how to use technology, thank you very much, and started researching Connecticut conservatorship laws. What I found made my blood boil, but also gave me hope. Derek would need to prove I was actually incompetent, unable to manage my own affairs. He'd need medical evidence, psychiatric evaluations, a court hearing. It wasn't something he could just do overnight, despite his threats. But the fact that he'd even mentioned it told me how far he was willing to go. I spent that entire evening making lists, thinking through every angle. What did Derek and Jessica actually know about my finances? Nothing, I realized. I'd always been private about money, a habit from growing up poor during harder times. They assumed I was living off Robert's small pension and Social Security. They had no idea I'd been carefully investing for years, that I had nearly $200,000 in various accounts beyond the house sale money. They thought I was a helpless old woman. That was their first mistake. By midnight, I had the skeleton of a plan. I wouldn't tell them about the sale immediately. No, that would be too easy, too quick. They wanted to play games with my life. I'd let them play. I'd let them show their true colors completely, dig themselves in deeper, reveal to everyone, to themselves, exactly who they'd become. And then, when the time was right, I'd pull the rug out from under them. I picked up my phone and called my friend Margaret, who I'd known since Derek was in diapers. She answered groggily, "Martha, it's midnight. What's wrong?" "Margaret," I said, my voice steady now, "I need your help, and I need you to trust me when I say you can't tell anyone, not even your daughter, what I'm about to ask you." There was a pause. Then, "I'm listening. I need a place to stay for a few days, maybe a week, and I need you to help me move some things out of my house tomorrow while Derek is at work. Can you do that? What's going on?" "I'll explain everything, but right now I need to know, are you with me?" Margaret didn't hesitate. "Always have been, honey. Always will be." I smiled again, but this time it wasn't from irony. It was from determination. The game had begun. The next morning, I woke up at 6 a.m. and got to work. Margaret arrived at 8 with her son's pickup truck, just as I'd asked. We had exactly 7 hours before Derek typically came home from work. "You're sure about this?" Margaret asked as we stood in my living room. "Completely." I handed her a list. "These are the items that matter. Family photos, Robert's military medals, my mother's jewelry, important documents. Everything else can stay." We worked systematically, room by room. I wasn't running away, not yet. I was securing what mattered, preparing for what came next. Every photo album, every irreplaceable memory went into boxes that we loaded into Margaret's son's truck. By 2 p.m., the most precious parts of my life were safely stored in Margaret's basement. The house looked the same, but it was hollowed out, just like Derek had tried to hollow me out. At 3 o'clock, I drove to my lawyer's office. Gerald Morrison had handled Robert's will and had known our family for 20 years. When I called that morning asking for an emergency appointment, he'd cleared his schedule. "Martha," he said, studying me over his reading glasses, "tell me what's happening." I told him everything. Derek's threats, Jessica's manipulation, the conservatorship mention. His face grew grimmer with each detail. "Do you have any proof of these threats?" he asked. "Not recorded, if that's what you mean. But there's something else." I pulled out my phone and showed him text messages I'd found last night while I couldn't sleep. Derek had sent them to his cousin Linda 2 weeks ago. Linda had forwarded them to me this morning after I'd called her, explaining the situation. The texts made everything clear. Mom's being stubborn about the house. Jessica's threatening to leave me if I don't get her the Mercedes she wants. I might have to play hardball, get her declared incompetent or something. She's old enough that people would believe it. I know it sounds harsh, but Mom will be fine in assisted living. She doesn't need a whole house. Jessica needs this car. Our marriage depends on it. Gerald's jaw tightened as he read. "This is Martha. This is evidence of elder financial abuse, attempted exploitation. With the conservatorship threat, this could be grounds for a restraining order if you wanted one." "I don't want a restraining order," I said calmly. "Not yet. But I need you to do something for me." I outlined my plan. Gerald's eyebrows climbed higher with each point, but when I finished, he was nodding slowly. "It's unorthodox," he admitted, "but completely legal. And given what they're trying to do to you..." He pulled out a legal pad. "Let's make this ironclad." We spent 2 hours going over every detail. By the time I left his office at 5 p.m., I had everything I needed: documentation, legal protection, and a strategy that would force Derek and Jessica to face exactly what they'd become. I drove home carefully, my mind clear and focused. When I pulled into my driveway, my heart lurched. Derek's car was already there. He'd come home early. And Jessica's Mercedes SUV, apparently the BMW had been traded in already, on credit, I suspected, was parked behind it. They were inside my house, waiting. I took a deep breath, grabbed my purse with Gerald's documents safely inside, and walked to my front door. It was unlocked. They'd used Derek's old key. I found them in the living room, Jessica sitting on my couch like she owned it, Derek pacing nervously. "Mom, where have you been?" Derek demanded. "We've been calling you for hours." "I was out," I said simply, setting down my purse. Jessica stood up, her arms crossed. "Have you started packing? The realtor is coming tomorrow morning to take photos and list the property." Something inside me went very still. "Is that so?" "Yes," Derek said, trying to sound firm, but mostly sounding defensive. "We've decided to move forward quickly. The sooner we sell, the sooner we can all move on with our lives. And you've already contacted a realtor." My voice was flat. "Of course, we can't waste time." Jessica smiled that poisonous smile. "You understand, don't you, Martha? This is business. Nothing personal." Nothing personal. They were stealing my home, and it was nothing personal. "I see." I walked to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water with hands that didn't shake at all. When I turned back, they were both watching me with expressions I'd never seen before, something calculating and cold. Derek cleared his throat. "So, Mom, about your bank accounts. We're going to need you to add me as a co-signer, just in case something happens to you, you know. We need to make sure everything's in order." There it was, the final proof. They weren't just after my house. They wanted access to everything. I took a slow sip of water and smiled at my son. "Of course, Derek. Whatever you think is best." His relief was visible. Jessica actually laughed, a short, triumphant sound. They had no idea what was coming. As they left, Jessica whispered something to Derek in the doorway. I heard it clearly. "I told you she'd cave. Old people always do." I closed the door behind them and locked it. Then I pulled out my phone and called Gerald. "It's time," I said. "They just took the bait. Let's move to phase 2. The next morning at 9 a.m. sharp, the realtor arrived. Her name was Sandra Chen, a sharply dressed woman in her 40s who looked confused when I answered the door. "Mrs. Henderson? I'm here to photograph the house for the listing. Your son Derek arranged—" "I know why you're here," I said pleasantly. "But there seems to be a misunderstanding. This house is not for sale." Sandra's brow furrowed. "I'm sorry, but Derek Henderson contacted my office yesterday. He said, 'Derek doesn't own this house. I do, and I haven't authorized any sale.'" I handed her a copy of the title deed that Gerald had prepared for me, along with a letter on his law firm's letterhead. "If you have questions, you can contact my attorney." Sandra scanned the documents, her face going pale. I'll need to call Derek." "Please do. And if he tells you anything different, tell him I said to check the property records. They're public." She left quickly, already dialing her phone. I watched from my window as she sat in her car, making calls. First Derek, then someone else. Her broker, probably. My phone rang 10 minutes later. Derek. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again. And again. 7 times in 20 minutes. Then the text started. "Mom, what did you do? Call me right now. This isn't funny. You're making a huge mistake." I silenced my phone and continued with my morning tea. They arrived at noon, both of them. Derek's face red with anger, Jessica's twisted in fury. They pounded on the door so hard I thought they might break it. I opened it calmly. "Hello, Derek." "Jessica, what the hell did you tell that realtor?" Derek pushed past me into the house. "She's threatening to report me for fraud. Do you have any idea what you've done? I told her the truth. I closed the door carefully, blocking their path deeper into my home. This is my house. You have no right to sell it. We're trying to help you, Jessica shrieked, her composure completely gone. You're too old to manage this place. We're your family. If you're my family, then act like it. My voice was quiet, but it cut through her hysteria. Family doesn't threaten. Family doesn't manipulate. Family doesn't try to steal. Derek's face changed. Calculation replacing rage. Mom, I think you're confused. Maybe we should schedule that doctor's appointment we discussed. Get you checked out. Memory issues can be... I'm not confused, Derek. I pulled out my phone and played the voice memo I'd recorded yesterday when they'd demanded access to my bank accounts. Their own words filled the living room. Crystal clear. The color drained from his face. That's taken out of context, he stammered. Is it? I played the text messages from Linda next, his own words about getting me declared incompetent. Is this out of context too? Jessica grabbed Derek's arm. She's recording us. She's trying to trap us. Derek, you need to leave my house, I said firmly. Both of you. Now. You're making a terrible mistake, Jessica hissed, her mask completely slipped now. You think you're so smart, so independent? You're a lonely old woman with no one who cares about you except us. You'll die alone in this house and no one will find you for weeks. Is that what you want? The cruelty in her voice took my breath away, but I stood firm. Get out, now, or I'm calling the police, Derek tried one more time. Mom, please, we can work this out. Jessica's upset. She didn't mean... Yes, she did. And you let her. You became her. Now leave. For a moment, I thought Derek might actually become violent. His fists clenched, his jaw worked. But then Jessica pulled him toward the door. Fine, she spat. Keep your precious house, but don't come crying to us when you need help. We're done. You hear me? Done. They slammed the door so hard a picture frame fell off the wall. I stood there, shaking now that they were gone, and sank into the nearest chair. My heart was hammering, adrenaline flooding my system. I'd stood up to them. I'd actually done it. But Jessica's words echoed, "You'll die alone in this house." Was I being foolish? Stubborn? Would I regret this? No. No, I wouldn't. Because what they wanted wasn't love or care. It was control and money. I called Margaret. Can I come stay with you for a few days? I need some space to breathe. Pack a bag. I'll make up the guest room. For the next 3 days, I stayed at Margaret's house, away from my phone, away from the constant barrage of texts and calls from Derek and Jessica. Margaret's husband, John, made his famous pot roast. We watched old movies. I slept for 12 hours the first night, exhausted from the emotional toll. Margaret sat with me on her porch on the third evening. You did the right thing, you know. Did I? I stared at the sunset. He's my son, and you're his mother, but that doesn't give him the right to abuse you. She squeezed my hand. Whatever you're planning next, I'm here. I nodded slowly. The rest had helped. My mind was clear again, my determination restored. It was time for the next phase. When I returned home on Thursday morning, I found a letter tucked under my door. Expensive cream-colored stationery. Derek's handwriting. Dear Mom, I'm sorry. We both are. Jessica and I talked and we realized we pushed too hard. We were wrong to pressure you about the house. You have every right to live there as long as you want. Can we start over? Please come to dinner this Sunday. Jessica wants to apologize in person. We're family, and family should work through their problems together. Love, Derek. I read it twice, looking for the trap. It was there, in the phrases. As long as you want, not it's your house. Work through their problems. As if I was the problem. My phone buzzed. A text from Jessica, the first direct message she'd ever sent me. Martha, I'm sorry for what I said. I was stressed about money and took it out on you. Can we please talk? Mother to mother? I need your guidance. Mother to mother. She'd never called me that before. I set the phone down and made myself coffee, thinking. This was the next tactic, manipulation through guilt and false reconciliation. They'd figured out aggression didn't work, so now came sweetness and repentance. But I'd been a mother for 42 years. I knew the difference between genuine remorse and strategic apology. I didn't respond to either message. On Friday, flowers arrived. 24 red roses with a card. We love you, Mom. Please forgive us. They must have cost $200. Money they supposedly didn't have for anything except Jessica's car. I gave them to my neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, who was recovering from hip surgery. Saturday brought a gift basket from an expensive specialty store. Cheeses, crackers, imported chocolates. Another card. You deserve the best. Let's talk. Derek and Jessica. I donated it to the library's fundraiser raffle. Sunday morning, Derek showed up alone. I watched him from my window, sitting in his car for 10 minutes before finally approaching my door. He knocked softly, not pounding this time. I opened it, but didn't invite him in. Mom? He looked tired, older than his 42 years. Did you get my letter? I did. Will you come to dinner, please? Jessica made your favorite. Pot roast with those little potatoes you like. I studied my son's face, looking for the boy I'd raised. Was he still in there somewhere? Or had that person been completely consumed by whatever he'd become? Derek, answer me honestly. If I come to dinner, what happens? He blinked. What do you mean? I mean, what's the real agenda? Are you actually sorry, or are you just trying a different strategy? His face flushed. That's not fair. I'm trying to apologize and I'm being cautious. Because 2 weeks ago, you threatened to have me declared incompetent so you could steal my house. Because your wife told me I'd die alone. Those aren't things you come back from with a few flowers and a letter. People say things they don't mean when they're upset. Do they? I kept my voice level. Because those texts to Linda, the ones about playing hardball with your mother, you sent those before we argued. You were planning this. The guilt that flashed across his face told me everything. I thought so, I said quietly. Derek, I love you. You're my son, and I always will love you. But I don't trust you anymore. And until you can show me, really show me, not just tell me, that you've changed, we don't have anything to discuss. So that's it? You're just cutting me off? His voice rose. Mom, I'm your only child. And that's supposed to give you the right to abuse me? Something sharp entered my tone. You want back in my life? Fine. Get counseling. Both of you. Work on your marriage without using me as a piggy bank. Show me you can be the man your father and I raised you to be. Then we'll talk. You're being unreasonable. But there was desperation in his voice now, not anger. I'm being appropriate. Now please leave. He stood there for a long moment, mouth opening and closing, like he wanted to say something, but couldn't find the words. Finally, he turned and walked back to his car. I watched him drive away and felt nothing. No guilt. No doubt. Just a cold, clear certainty that I was doing the right thing. That afternoon, I went to the library where I volunteered. My friend Patricia, the head librarian, pulled me aside. Martha, I heard something happened with Derek. Are you okay? Word traveled fast in small communities. I hadn't told anyone except Margaret the full story, but apparently enough had leaked. probably through Linda, that people were aware of the conflict. "I'm fine," I said. "Better than fine, actually." Patricia studied me carefully. "You know, if you need anything, and I mean anything, you just have to ask. You've been here for this library, for this community, for years. We take care of our own." Her words brought unexpected tears to my eyes. "Thank you." Over the next few hours, 3 more people, volunteers and regular patrons, pulled me aside with similar offers. Apparently, Derek had made some calls around town, trying to find allies, telling people I was having memory issues and becoming difficult. It had backfired spectacularly. People who'd known me for decades weren't buying it. "That boy of yours always was entitled," Mrs. Patterson told me bluntly when I visited to check on her hip. "We all saw it. You were too close to notice, but the rest of us? We knew. And that wife of his is a piece of work." I laughed, really laughed, for the first time in weeks. I wasn't alone. Derek and Jessica thought they could isolate me, make me dependent and desperate. But I had something they'd never understood the value of: genuine community, real friends, people who knew my character. That evening, my phone stayed silent. No texts, no calls, no more attempts at reconciliation. They were regrouping, watching, waiting for their next opening. But I was ready. 10 days passed in relative peace. I began to wonder if Derek and Jessica had actually given up, accepted that I wouldn't be manipulated or threatened into submission. I should have known better. They arrived on Wednesday evening, just as the sun was setting. I heard the car doors close, heard their footsteps on my porch, 2 sets, walking in tandem. When I opened the door, they were both wearing what I can only describe as masks of concern. "Mom," Derek said softly, "can we please come in, just to talk? No agenda, I promise." Against my better judgment, or perhaps because I wanted to see how far they'd go, I stepped aside and let them in. Jessica sat on my couch, hands folded demurely in her lap, a far cry from the woman who'd screamed at me 2 weeks ago. "Martha, I owe you a real apology, not just flowers or gifts, a genuine, from-the-heart apology." I remained standing, arms crossed, waiting. "I've been selfish," she continued, her voice trembling slightly. "I got caught up in wanting things, material things, and I forgot what really matters: family, love, connection." She looked at Derek, who nodded encouragingly. "Derek and I have been going to counseling, like you suggested, and it's helped me realize how much I've hurt you." "Counseling?" I repeated. "Since when?" "We've had 2 sessions already," Derek said quickly. "With Dr. Morrison at the Family Wellness Center. We can give you his number if you want to verify." That was oddly specific. Maybe they were serious? "I'm glad you're getting help," I said carefully. "It's made us realize something," Jessica continued, her eyes meeting mine with what looked like sincerity. "We need you, Martha. Not your house, not your money. You. Derek needs his mother, and I—" She paused, her voice catching. "I never had a good relationship with my own mother. She was cold, distant. When I married Derek, I thought maybe I could have that with you. But I let my insecurities and materialism poison everything." I felt something shift in my chest. Could people really change this quickly? Was I being too harsh? Derek leaned forward. "Mom, we want to start over. Really start over. We're not asking you to trust us immediately. We know we have to earn that back. But can we at least try?" I studied them both. Jessica's perfect makeup, Derek's earnest expression. Something felt off, but I couldn't quite pinpoint what. "What does starting over look like to you?" I asked. "Weekly dinners," Derek said. "No talk about houses or money or any of that. Just family time. Getting to know each other again. And, Jessica added, pulling a folder from her purse, we brought something to show our good faith. She handed it to me. We traded in the Mercedes I bought. Used the money to pay off our credit cards instead. See? We're making better choices. I opened the folder. Inside were credit card statements marked paid in full and a receipt from a car dealership showing a trade-in credit for $47,000. It looked legitimate. This is good, I said slowly. This is a good step. Jessica smiled, and for a moment it seemed genuine. Then she said, "So, about the house." There it was. "What about the house?" My voice cooled instantly. "Nothing," Derek said quickly. "Nothing bad. We were thinking, since we're working on ourselves, maybe you could consider adding one of us to the title, just for emergency purposes. So if something happened to you, God forbid, the property wouldn't get tied up in probate." "It would make everything so much simpler," Jessica added, her voice honey sweet. "And it would show us that you're willing to trust us again, that you believe we've changed." And there it was. The trap, baited with fake counseling and manufactured reconciliation. "Get out," I said quietly. Derek's face fell. "Mom, we're just trying to get out." My voice was harder now. "You came here with your act, your props, your lies. Did you really think I wouldn't see through this?" Jessica's mask cracked. "We're trying to help you. When you die, do you want the state to take everything? Do you want lawyers fighting over this house for years?" "When I die," I said, my voice like ice, "this house will go exactly where I want it to go, and neither of you will get a penny." Derek stood up, his face reddening. "You're being paranoid. We showed you proof we're changing. You showed me papers that could be faked in an hour. You told me about a counselor I'm supposed to just believe exists. You came here with a script you rehearsed together." I walked to the door and opened it. "I'm not stupid, Derek. I'm not senile. I see exactly what you're doing." Jessica stood as well, her composure completely shattered now. "You ungrateful bitch," she hissed. "We wasted 2 weeks trying to be nice to you, and this is how you repay us?" "Jess, don't!" Derek tried to grab her arm. She shook him off. "No, I'm done playing games with her." She turned to me, her face twisted with rage. "You think you're so smart, sitting here in your perfect little house with your perfect little life? You're pathetic, a lonely old woman clinging to the past. Derek's father is dead. Your friends will die soon, too. And then it'll just be you, alone, exactly like I said before." "Jessica!" Derek looked horrified. But she wasn't finished. "You want to cut us off? Fine. But don't come crawling back when you fall and break a hip and there's no one to take you to the hospital. Don't call when you're sick and scared and need someone to care. We're done with you." She stormed out. Derek lingered for a moment, his face torn between shame and anger. "Mom, Go," I said firmly. "Go with your wife. You made your choice." After they left, I locked the door with shaking hands. My heart was racing, my breath coming fast. Jessica's words had hit their mark. The fear of dying alone, of being helpless, of needing help that wouldn't come. Was I making a mistake? Was pride worth isolation? No. No, what they wanted wasn't help or love. It was control. It was ownership. I walked to my bedroom and pulled out the folder Gerald had prepared. Inside was everything I needed for the final phase. The culmination of weeks of planning. My hands were still shaking, but not from fear anymore, from anticipation. They wanted to play dirty. They hadn't seen anything yet. I scheduled the meeting for Friday afternoon at Gerald's law office. The location was deliberate. Neutral ground, professional setting, witnesses. The letter I sent Derek was simple. We need to discuss the house situation. Come to Gerald Morrison's office at 2 p.m. Friday. Bring Jessica. This is not optional. They arrived 15 minutes late, probably trying to make an entrance. Jessica wore a designer suit that had definitely been purchased after she supposedly traded in the Mercedes. Derek looked nervous, shifting his weight from foot to foot. Gerald's secretary showed them into the conference room where I was waiting with Gerald and two other people they didn't recognize. Linda, Derek's cousin who'd sent me the damning text messages, and Robert Chen, a representative from the Reyes family, the people who'd actually bought my house. Derek froze when he saw them. "What is this?" "Sit down," I said calmly. "This won't take long." They remained standing. Jessica's eyes darted between the strangers, calculating. "Derek, Jessica," Gerald began formally, "we're here today to clarify several legal matters regarding Martha Henderson's property and finances." "We don't have to listen to this," Jessica said, grabbing Derek's arm. "Come on, we're leaving." "If you leave," I said quietly, "Gerald will file a police report for attempted elder financial abuse and fraud. So I suggest you sit down." The color drained from Derek's face. They sat. I opened the folder in front of me, my hands completely steady now. "Derek, do you remember 3 weeks ago when you barged into my house and demanded I pack my things because you were selling it? I was upset. I didn't mean... Do you remember telling the realtor Sandra Chen that you owned this house? Signing preliminary paperwork as the owner? Accepting her services under false pretenses?" His mouth opened and closed. "That's fraud," Gerald said matter-of-factly. "Misrepresentation with intent to gain financial benefit." Jessica leaned forward. "You can't prove—" "I have Sandra's testimony," I interrupted, "signed and notarized. She's prepared to testify that Derek explicitly claimed ownership of the property." Linda spoke up then, her voice cool. "And I have the text messages where Derek outlined his plan to manipulate his mother into giving up her house, where he discussed having her declared incompetent despite knowing she's perfectly capable." Derek's head snapped toward her. "You betrayed me. Your own cousin." "You betrayed your mother," Linda shot back. "Someone in this family had to have a conscience." I continued, pulling out more documents. "Derek, do you know what this is?" I slid a paper across the table. "This is the deed to my house. Notice the date. It was transferred to the Reyes family 3 weeks ago, 2 days before you threatened me." The silence was deafening. "That's impossible," Jessica whispered. Robert Chen spoke for the first time, his voice calm and professional. "It's quite real. My clients purchased the property for $615,000 cash. Mrs. Henderson sold it willingly, in full possession of her faculties, with proper legal representation. She's currently renting it back from us on a 6-month lease." Derek stared at the document like it was written in a foreign language. You sold it." "I sold it," I confirmed. "Because 6 months ago, when you first started pressuring me, I realized where this was heading. So I took steps to protect myself." "You tricked us," Jessica shrieked. "You let us think—" "I let you reveal exactly who you are," I said, my voice cutting through her hysteria like a blade. "I gave you every opportunity to stop, to be a family, to show basic human decency. Instead, you threatened me, tried to have me declared incompetent, attempted fraud with the realtor, and just last week came to my house with fake counseling papers and forged credit card statements." "They weren't fake," Derek protested weakly. Gerald slid another paper across the table. "I called the Family Wellness Center. No Dr. Morrison works there. No counseling appointments were ever scheduled under your names." "And the credit card statements?" I added. "I had an accountant friend examine them, photoshopped. The fonts don't even match real Capital One statements." Jessica's face had gone from red to white to gray. She looked like she might be sick. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, my voice completely calm now. "You're going to leave me alone, permanently. No calls, no visits, no attempts at reconciliation. You're going to accept that you have no claim to my property, my finances, or my life. And if we don't? Derek's voice was barely a whisper. Then Gerald files all of this with the police and the state attorney general's office. Elder abuse, fraud, forgery, attempted financial exploitation. I counted them off on my fingers. Connecticut takes these crimes very seriously. You're looking at felony charges, Derek. Years in prison, potentially. Your accounting license revoked. Criminal record. Everything you've built, gone. You wouldn't do that to your own son, Jessica said, but there was no conviction in her voice. I met Derek's eyes. Try me. The man sitting across from me wasn't the boy I'd raised. That boy had died somewhere along the way, replaced by this stranger who saw his mother as an obstacle, a resource to be exploited. I loved you, I said quietly. I gave you everything I had. Your father worked himself into an early grave so you could have a good life. And you repaid us by trying to steal the one thing we built together. My voice didn't break. I wouldn't give them that. You're my son, Derek. You always will be. But right now, I don't like you very much. Derek's face crumbled. For a moment, genuine remorse flickered across his features. Mom, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened to me. Jessica, Don't you dare blame this on me, Jessica exploded. You wanted that house as much as I did. You're the one who said, Shut up, Derek shouted at her, then turned back to me. Mom, please, give me a chance to make this right. I'll go to real counseling. I'll fix this. Just don't cut me out of your life. I stood up, gathering my papers. That's not my decision anymore, Derek. You cut yourself out when you chose money over family. I looked at Gerald. File the restraining order. If either of them comes within 100 feet of me or attempts to contact me in any way, you have permission to proceed with criminal charges. No! Derek lunged from his chair, but Linda and Robert both stood, blocking his path. Derek, don't make this worse, Linda said firmly. I walked to the door, then paused and looked back at my son one final time. I hope someday you remember who you used to be. But until then, you're not welcome in my life. Jessica's voice followed me out. You'll regret this. You'll die alone and miserable. I didn't look back. In the hallway, Gerald caught up with me. Martha, are you all right? My hands were shaking now, adrenaline flooding my system. But I nodded. I'm fine. Better than fine. That was the hardest thing I've ever watched someone do. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, I admitted. But it was necessary. As I drove home, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt empty, drained, sad, but also free. The chains of obligation and guilt had finally broken. The restraining order was filed that evening. By Monday morning, Derek and Jessica had both been served with the papers, along with a formal notice from Gerald's office outlining the evidence of attempted fraud and elder abuse, and warning that any further contact would result in immediate criminal prosecution. I didn't hear from them again. Not a single call, text, or letter. The silence was profound. 3 weeks later, Linda called me. Martha, I thought you should know. Derek and Jessica are getting divorced. I sat down slowly. What happened? Apparently, the stress of the legal situation made everything explode. Jessica blamed Derek for not handling you properly. Derek blamed Jessica for pushing him to extremes. It got ugly fast. Linda paused. Derek moved into a studio apartment. Jessica's living with her mother now, ironically, the same mother she always claimed to hate. How is Derek? Honestly, a mess. He got put on administrative leave at work pending an ethics investigation. Apparently, someone sent them information about his attempt to commit fraud. He's not handling it well. I felt a pang of something. Not quite sympathy, but not satisfaction either. He was still my son. Somewhere under all that damage. Linda, thank you for keeping me informed, but I meant what I said. I can't have contact with him right now. I understand, but Martha? For what it's worth, I think you did the right thing. Derek needed to hit bottom. Maybe this is his chance to find his way back. Maybe, but that was his journey now, not mine. 2 months after the confrontation in Gerald's office, I received a letter from an unexpected source. Jessica's divorce attorney. Inside was a subpoena. Jessica was attempting to sue me for alienation of affection and intentional infliction of emotional distress. I showed it to Gerald, who actually laughed. She's desperate. This lawsuit has no merit whatsoever. You didn't break up their marriage. They did that themselves. And everything you did was legal and justified. So what do? We file a countersuit for harassment and malicious prosecution, and we win. He was right. The judge dismissed Jessica's lawsuit within 20 minutes of the hearing, calling it frivolous and vindictive. Then he listened to Gerald present our counter evidence, all the threats, the attempted fraud, the forged documents, the pattern of abuse. Jessica's attorney advised her to settle rather than face criminal charges. The settlement was simple. Jessica would pay $15,000 in legal fees and agree to have no contact with me for the rest of her life. Any violation would result in immediate criminal prosecution with no further warnings. She signed without even reading it, her hands shaking with rage. As we left the courthouse, she tried one last time. "You destroyed my marriage!" she shouted across the parking lot. "You destroyed my life!" I turned to face her. This woman who'd tried so hard to destroy mine. No, Jessica. You did that yourself. When you decided money was more important than people. When you turned my son against his mother. When you forgot that cruelty always comes back around. I hope you rot in that house. Her voice broke. I hope. Goodbye, Jessica. I got into my car and drove away, leaving her screaming in the parking lot. I never saw her again. Derek's situation continued to deteriorate. The ethics investigation at his accounting firm concluded with his termination, not for the attempted fraud against me. They couldn't prove that affected his work, but for falsifying expense reports to maintain Jessica's expensive lifestyle. Apparently, the scrutiny I'd brought down on him led them to dig deeper into his finances. He lost his CPA license, his reputation in the community, most of his friends who didn't want to be associated with someone known for elder abuse. I heard through Linda that he'd moved 2 states away, was working as a bookkeeper for a small business, living in a tiny apartment, rebuilding his life from scratch. Part of me felt sorry for him. But a larger part knew that this was the consequence of his choices. Not my actions, but his. As for me, the 6-month rental period with the Reyes family ended, and I made a decision. I bought a beautiful 2-bedroom condo in a senior living community, not assisted living, but an active community for people over 55. It had a pool, a garden, social activities, and most importantly, a strong sense of community. The Reyes family kept my old house, turned it into a loving home for their growing family. Sometimes I drive by and see children's toys in the yard, hear laughter through the windows. It makes me smile, knowing that house is filled with love again instead of being torn apart by greed. I took the money from selling the house, the $615,000 plus my other savings, and set up a trust. Not for Derek, but for a scholarship fund at the local community college, helping students from low-income families afford education. It was named after Robert, my late husband, who'd always believed in education and opportunity. Every semester, 5 students received $10,000 each. Some of them send me thank you letters telling me how the scholarship changed their lives. That's legacy. Not a house, not money in a bank account. The lives you touch, the difference you make. Gerald helped me draft a new will. Everything I own will go to various charities when I die. The library, the community college, local organizations that help seniors. Derek is mentioned in the will explicitly. To my son, Derek Henderson, I leave nothing, as he already took everything he wanted from me in life. It sounds harsh, maybe it is, but it's honest. And sometimes, honesty is the greatest kindness. 6 months into my new life at Riverside Senior Community, I woke up each morning actually excited about the day ahead. My condo was cozy, manageable, filled with light. I'd kept only the items that brought me joy: Robert's photos, my mother's china that I actually used now, books that I loved. I'd made friends quickly. Dorothy, a retired school principal. Frank and Susan, married 49 years. Maria, whose husband had passed 2 years ago, who understood grief without trying to fix it. We had weekly dinners, played bridge, took day trips. I'd joined the community theater and was volunteering at the local elementary school. My life was full, rich, purposeful. One Tuesday morning, Margaret called. Jessica was arrested for credit card fraud. She'd been opening credit cards in other people's names, including her own mother's. She was facing up to 10 years in prison. I felt mostly sad. Sad that greed could destroy someone so completely. Through Linda, I heard Derek had hit rock bottom but started real therapy. He was working at a nonprofit now, volunteering at a food bank. He asks about you, Linda said. He just wants to know you're okay. Don't tell him where I live, not yet, maybe not ever. Did I miss Derek? Sometimes I'd think about the little boy who brought me dandelions. But that boy was gone. At the community center, a woman asked me, "Do you ever regret cutting off your son?" I thought carefully. Family is supposed to love you, support you, respect you. When they become toxic, you have to ask yourself, is this relationship adding to my life or taking from it? But the guilt is real, I acknowledged. But so is peace. Those things are worth something too. Later, I received a letter from Derek. "Mom, I was wrong about everything. I'm in therapy now. I heard you're happy. That makes me happy too. You deserve peace. I love you. I'm sorry." Derek, I read it 3 times, then folded it and put it in a drawer. Maybe someday we could have coffee, but not today. Possibly not ever. And that was okay. I had book club in an hour, then dinner with friends. Tomorrow, volunteering, then lunch with Dorothy and Maria. My calendar was full. My heart was healing. My life was mine. And that was enough. Claude is AI and can make mistakes. Please double-check responses. Sonnet 4.5 Claude is AI and can make mistakes. Please double-check responses. So here's what I learned. You can love someone and still set boundaries. You can be someone's mother and still say no. Family doesn't give anyone the right to abuse you, manipulate you, or steal from you. I spent 68 years being a good wife, a good mother, a good person. I'm spending the rest of my life being good to myself. What would you do if your own child tried to take everything from you? Would you stand firm or would you give in? Think about it. Share your thoughts. And remember, you teach people how to treat you. Thank you for listening to my story. Take care of yourselves. You deserve it.